I think, and I've been arguing for well over 10 years, that the increased privatization of warfare is one of the biggest insecurity threats of the 21st century, and it gets almost no attention. Terrorism gets attention, China and Russia get attention, but look how Russia is using, mercenaries. Russia is doing expeditionary operations into two continents now, Africa and the Middle East, the first time since the 1980s. They're leading spear tip. It's not Spetsnaz special forces or Russian troops or little green men. It's mercenaries like the Wagner group. And it's not just Russia, it's everybody. I mean, earlier this year in July of 2021, the president of Haiti was assassinated by Colombian mercenaries. We have mercenaries fighting other mercenaries in Libya today. It's like a medieval warfare, right? We don't know exactly who's on the ground, what they're fighting for, and why. We know there's a lot of you have Russian mercenaries, Turkish mercenaries, Egyptian. When I say Turkish mercenaries, I don't mean they're like all Turkish people. It's like what it is the Turkish regime is going out and finding mercenaries who speak different languages from all over the world to go into Libya and fight, right? We see Yemen full of mercenaries. We see billionaires hiring mercenaries. So some of you may know Carlos Ghosn. He was the former chairman and CEO of Nissan Motors. He was arrested in 2019 in Tokyo for corruption, and he has been under house arrest in Tokyo under the national police and under Japanese intelligence. He secretly hired American Green Beret mercenary to do an exfiltration like a CIA James Bond op, and they got him out under the noses of Japanese authorities into Lebanon, which has no extradition treaty, right? And every billionaire's light bulb went off saying, oh, I have a get out of jail free card. I don't have to be accountable as much as I used to. Multinational corporations are looking at this private warfare sector because if you're ExxonMobil and you're in Africa or the Middle East, you don't want to depend from their point of view on like corrupt host nations. You'd rather take charge of your own security. And we're getting into an era where, maybe ExxonMobil one day will have its own private army. Maybe Elon Musk someday will have its own private army. Maybe a mega church in the United States will have its own private army to do humanitarian Christian interventions, right? So the reason why this is, this is literally an exploding sector in international relations that's not getting covered is that mercenaries do a lot of things very well. I don't mean morally well. I mean, warfare well. First of all, let's be realistic. Mercenaries are the second oldest profession, right? The world that we grew up in sixth grade that said that the world war is only a privilege of nation states, that is manifestly untrue. For most of human history, anybody who could swipe a check could wage war for any reason they wanted, no matter how petty. The super rich were superpowers. So if you look at the Middle Ages in Europe, that's how wars were fought, mercenaries. Popes hired mercenary armies. That's how the Romans conquered the world. They had legions, but around each legion was a cohorts of mercenaries or sellswords or whatever you want. Even the Old Testament talks about this, and never with any shame. So they are good because they're cheaper. Like it's like renting a car is cheaper than owning one. They are less dangerous because having a standing military, historically, they can wage a palace coup where they can take things over. Those who have been to Milan may know this, is that Milan, for a dynasty, had the Sforza dynasty in the Middle Ages, was started by warlord mercenaries. But the real reason we're seeing them today, like why do countries like Russia use mercenaries? Because they have a very good military. Why do they use it? Well, a few reasons. One, Nick, that you raise is that if you have a population which is casualty adverse, it's better to hire mercenaries because Russians, just like Americans, they freak out when they see dead soldiers coming home in body bags, but they do not care about dead contractors. They are disposable people. even if they're Americans or Russians, they do not care. The second reason is that because we live in an information age, weapons that give you plausible deniability are now more important than lethality. That's why the F-35 is pretty useless today, because just flying it over a country is an act of war. But if you could use covert means like mercenaries, because even if you capture mercenaries, like in Haiti, those mercenaries, they may not know who they work for. And you don't, just because they're Colombian doesn't mean they're working for the Colombian government, because there's so many cutouts. That mercenaries are ideal ways to fight modern wars beneath the threshold of the global media. And if you want to win wars, you fight it beneath the threshold of global media, NGOs, etc. That's how Putin took Ukraine. He created the fog of war in Ukraine, used mercenaries and special forces and little green men. And when the West was still trying to figure out what the heck was going on the ground, the Crimea was a fait accompli. And only then did he pull back the curtain and say, ha, 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 it's been us all along. And he keeps the Crimea. That's how wars are fought. Not with aircraft carriers or F-35s, but these sneaky ways, like mercenaries, because they give you plausible deniability, and they allow you to take greater risks, and they lower the barriers of entry into conflict.